Sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. So, the NFL season ended 3 weeks ago, and already there's some drama coming out of the Philadelphia Eagles camp, and it's the usual suspects at the forefront. Now, there might not be drama directly on Front Street between Eagles head coach Nick Sirianni and star wide receiver A.J. Brown, but the writing is on the wall that there could be some problems. Sirianni was recently asked about Brown's status with the Eagles for next season, and he is a player that the head coach publicly wants to remain in Philadelphia. But Sirianni's recent comments, where he neither dismissed the notion of Brown being an Eagle in 2026 or not, really does make you wonder. It's one of those where, Sirianni was asked, will AJ be here next season? I think we're still in a spot like I can't guarantee how anything is going to play out into next season. I'm thinking I'm going to be the coach next season, but you can't guarantee anything past tomorrow. Well, you can take from that, you can glean from it whatever you want, but I truly do feel that if everybody was on the same page and Nick Sirianni truly wanted AJ Brown to be an Eagle next year, he would just clearly say AJ is in our long term plans. That's just my thoughts on it. Now, Eagles GM Howie Roseman basically said that you don't get better by subtracting a guy like Brown from your team. Sirianni kind of said the same thing as well. And he also went to add that the Eagles are looking to get better. But AJ Brown has not given any public indications that he does not want to be a Philadelphia Eagle, but still, is everything truly right there? As I've said, following the first round loss for the Eagles back in January to the 49ers, something just seemed off with this team all season long. And part of that frustration was frustration rather coming from AJ Brown. Now, you go back to when the Eagles won the Super Bowl back in 2024. Their bread was buttered by their run game with Saquon Barkley. And since Barkley came to Philadelphia, we've seen AJ Brown's numbers dip. Matter of fact, AJ Brown's first season in Philadelphia was 2022, and that was the year that the Eagles lost to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. That year, he had 88 receptions, one nearly 1,500 yards, 1,496 to be exact, with 11 TDs. 2023, he had 1,456 yards with 7 TDs. You go back to Saquon's first season in Philadelphia, 2024, when Saquon was on the cusp of breaking the single season rushing record. A.J. Brown only had 67 catches, and I say only compared to what he had previously for 1,079 yards and 7 TDs. And this past season, he had to fight, scratch, and claw just to get to the 1,000 yard mark. He had 78 catches for 1,003 yards with 7 TDs. And it's one of those where, how is this going to work out in Philadelphia for this upcoming season? They once again have themselves a new offensive coordinator in Sean Mannion, a guy who's never called plays. Okay. And he has to replace Kevin Patullo, who was a longtime assistant on the offensive side for Philadelphia under Nick Sirianni. Once Kellen Moore got the New Orleans job as their head coach, Patullo was bumped up, and of course, it just never worked out last season. So, with that said, what changes need to be made to this Eagles offense for the 2026 season? First things first, I think Philly's got to get back to how their bread was buttered, and they got to find ways to get Saquon the football. It's one of those where his running ability kind of like opens everything up. But the other problem is we've seen teams more and more this past season key on Saquon and basically say, you know what, Jalen Hurts is going to have to beat us with his arm. And to me, I feel like as good as Jalen Hurts is, and this is not a slight on him, he's not a guy who is going to simply go out there and put an offense on his back. I feel like Jalen Hurts is at his best when the Eagles are able to run the football and run the football effectively. So these are question marks for Philadelphia going into this offseason. It's one of those, do I truly feel that A.J. Brown is frustrated with his role in the Eagles offense? I think so. It's one of those, no good receiver has ever been like, you know what, I'm okay being a decoy. I'm okay not getting the football, this, that, and the third. A.J. Brown wants the football. Uh, at the same time, with Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni really take serious consideration into trading the Pro Bowl wide receiver. Listen, if somebody's not happy, I think you've got to move on. But here is the tricky part because let's just hypothetically say that the Eagles are interested in trading AJ Brown. They're not going to come out and publicly say it because you're putting it out there that hey, we don't want this guy X, Y, and Z, and maybe his trade value would decrease off of that. I'll tell you like this, if you were to trade AJ Brown, I would anticipate that Howie Roseman would be looking back for a first round pick for him. But here's where it gets tricky because if you trade AJ Brown prior to June 1st, he counts for about 20 million extra against the salary cap for Philadelphia, or 20 million less, right? 20 million extra, excuse me, towards the salary cap. But if you trade him after June 1st, he counts for 20 million less. Now, if you do it after June 1st and you get a first round pick, you're getting a first round pick that's not going to help your team in 2026. And if you're Philadelphia and you trade a guy the caliber of an AJ Brown, you want somebody who's going to go out there and impact this team now. Now, when I think about the possibility of Philadelphia trading an AJ Brown, one thing that comes to mind and always comes to mind, I think back to when the Minnesota Vikings traded Stephon Diggs to the Buffalo Bills and got a first round pick back for him. And the Vikings basically used that pick for Justin Jefferson. That's an upgrade right there. You look at it from the Eagles standpoint, like Howie Roseman said, you don't get better without an AJ Brown. But the wide receivers in this draft that the Eagles could possibly get to replace an AJ Brown, are any of these guys coming out of college right now better than AJ Brown? And in my opinion, no. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this thing works out for the Philadelphia Eagles. As good as Jalen Hurts is, like I said, he's not a guy that's going to put an offense on his back. He's limited with what he can do passing, in my opinion. Still a quality quarterback. But it's going to be interesting to see because I just feel, again, something is not right there. Um, Also, I would imagine getting back to a possible trade, the Eagles would be looking for a one for him. What would other teams around the league be willing to give the Eagles in return for an AJ Brown? That also has to be a question right there. So I think the next couple of weeks are going to be very telling. The new league year is set to begin, but again, um, if you told me that the Eagles were to trade AJ Brown prior to the NFL draft, I would not be surprised. If you told me that the Eagles were to keep AJ Brown for the upcoming season, I would not be surprised either. One way or the other, nobody's going to tip their hands on this. I think Howie Roseman is one of the best in the business as far as what he does, as far as running and operating a front office in the National Football League. Um, we've seen the Eagles attempt to run some damage control with this, but the bottom line is Philadelphia cannot afford to have another lackluster season, if you will, from their standards. Okay, they've got to get back on track. They've got to get everybody on the same page. That clearly was not the case this past NFL season. Will AJ Brown be a part of that solution, or will he be catching passes for another NFL team in another NFL city? Only time will tell. But folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for checking out the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. And as always, if you like what you heard and saw in this podcast, you know what to do. Just hit that like button as well as subscribing to this channel. And like I always say, it's greatly appreciated. Also, if you are on the X, formerly known as Twitter, you can check me out anytime at 300 pounds of sports. And like I always say, if you give me that follow, it will be my pleasure to do the same in return. That also goes for Instagram, where you can check me out at 300 pounds of sports knowledge. Also, if you're on Facebook, please be sure to check out the Sports Depot 365. And as far as I'm concerned, one of the better sports groups going on social media. But until next time, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I'm signing off, and I'm saying thanks once again for checking out the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Be well, everybody.